Greetings, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Deciding to Soar, Living Life Your Own Way. My name is Jamison, and I am a corporate leader. I am a life strategist, a minister, and a mom. And if this is your first time listening to the podcast, welcome. This is an unedited, unscripted space where I share what I'm learning in my own life, as well as what I am learning from working with so many amazing healers, entrepreneurs, visionaries, leaders, and brave souls, people just like you. And today I'm really excited to share something that really helped me understand that we all have so much in common. And it's based on an experience that I shared with my newsletter community about going back to the gym after almost an 18-month layoff, going back to the gym. And the reason why I want to share that because I realized in my life, and I'm sure you have realized in your life, we all can be in situations where we are going to a familiar place, but we're going to that familiar place as a changed person. And some of us might be going to a familiar place as a changed person because you may have gone through illness like I have, or you might be going to a familiar place as a changed person because you have dealt with grief and loss and disappointment and divorce and downsizing and career shifting, a season of caregiving. And what I've learned that sometimes is so difficult to go to a familiar place and to feel as if you fit in, to feel as if you are home, to feel as if you are in a place that supports the person who you are now without some feelings about it. And I share my experience. I've heard from so many people sharing their experience. And so I wanted to share the 6 reflections that I shared with the newsletter community. And you can always join the newsletter community, hoping that it resonates with you and gives you more freedom or more spaciousness to explore what might be happening in your own life. And so, first, let me tell you about the story that happened that totally illuminates my experience. After not working out for 18 months, I just walked back into the gym and thought I would just pick up where I left off. I don't know why I thought that, but I did. And so I went to the leg press machine and I put 100 on one side and 100 on the other side because I've always pushed 200 pounds and did my leg press. And I sat down and I'm not even thinking that my body has changed, not even thinking about the impact that the illness had on my psyche, on my strength, on my stamina. And I thought I was going to push the weight and I couldn't. And I'm like, okay. So I took 25 pounds off each side and I tried it again and I still couldn't push the weight. Okay. I swallowed and I tried again. Took off 20 pounds, 5 pounds on each side. I still couldn't push the weight. And so I had taken everything down from 200 pounds to 50 pounds, 25 on each side. And I tried with all my might to push the weight. And my legs were just shaking and my body was shaking as I tried to muster up the strength to push the weight. And as I was pushing the weight and my body was shaking, my legs were shaking just out of pure willpower, I started crying. And the tears just came. They were unexpected. They were flowing everywhere. And it made me a little self-conscious. But what resonated to me is that the woman who used to sit here pushing those 200 pounds with ease, that woman is not here. That woman is gone. And it's a new woman, a new person. Me, who could not push 200 pounds. I was sitting in the machine. And it occurred to me that sometimes people only associate recovery with getting stronger. Stronger at your job, stronger physically, stronger emotionally, stronger financially, stronger spiritually. But sometimes recovery is not about getting stronger. It's about grieving. It's about grieving who you used to be. Grieving about what your body used to do. Grieving the sense of certainty that you can do something like you've always done, like I did. I was just certain that I can lift that 200 pounds, and now I couldn't, and really didn't know my limits anymore. You're grieving the loss of your confidence, because I used to be very confident in the gym. I took a lot of pride in being 60 years old and strong and powerful, and now here I was, struggling and shaking. And it made me think of 6 reflections that I shared in a newsletter that I want to share with you, because I'm sure in your life you are showing up in some familiar places as a new person too. And I hope this podcast speaks to your specific situation in ways that help you feel seen and heard and known. So the first reflection I want to share with you is that there are different kinds of beginners. There are different kinds of beginners. I think when we picture somebody beginning something, we picture people doing something for the very first time. And that is true. But there are different types of beginners. There are people who is showing up, returning to something. Maybe they're beginning like I did, working out in a new body, beginning after illness, returning after loss, returning after disappointment, returning after burnout, returning after caregiving. And in that space, when you are a new type of beginner, you're not just learning in a new place, or you're not just learning in an old place or a familiar place. You are starting to learn about who you are. You're learning about yourself, this new person with these new circumstances and these new capabilities. So I want you to just name in your life, where are you a new beginner, but maybe in an old place? Where are you returning to something in a familiar place? And give yourself space to identify yourself as a beginner, as a courageous beginner, willing to try again, or willing to try anew. The second reflection I want to share with you is that familiar places feel different when we change. Familiar places feel different. And a familiar place might be the office, but it feels different because now you changed. Or maybe your marriage might be a familiar place, but you have changed because you have grown, you have healed, you have broadened your perspective. Or maybe in my place too, in my circumstances, the church may be a familiar place, but I wasn't the same. And maybe you're not the same because you're growing spiritually. You have different perspectives, different sets of understanding. You want to incorporate more beliefs or different beliefs. So same place, but you're different. How about the neighborhood? You might be going into your neighborhood as a changed person because you had a life-changing experience. You had an aha moment. You had an awakening. So even though you're in the same community, in the same neighborhood, maybe the same organization, you realize that you're different and things don't fit like they used to because you have a broader perspective or a broader understanding or just a different opinion. Maybe your job feels is the same, but you feel different. because you are tired of making your job a priority and now you want to make your joy a priority. And so when we think about familiar places and feeling different when we change, I think it's important for us to recognize that and honor that, because we can go to a familiar place. Like I said, it can be your job, your place of worship, your gym, your doctor, your family, a reunion, and you realize you're just different. You're different because you have new wisdom. You may have some new wounds, new worries, new priorities, new boundaries, new limitations, new capabilities, new understanding. And so when we go to a familiar place and we are different, it requires us to adjust. And sometimes people will resist our changes and resist our adjustments. But it's important for you to know that you have an opportunity and you have the permission to make adjustments, because what used to feel like home might start to feel like a hindrance. What used to feel like a good place might start to feel like a small place. What used to give you a sense of destiny might fill you with a new sense of disappointment. Why? Because it's a familiar place, a familiar setting, a familiar organization, but you're different. And we just got to allow ourselves to feel it and adjust based on who we are and who we feel called to be in this season or this stage of our lives. The third reflection I want to share with you is many beginnings are invisible. Many beginnings are invisible and require a lot of invisible courage. And the reason I share that, because over the last couple of weeks, I've had so many clients who are going through invisible beginnings, beginnings where they are starting afresh after maybe a failed IVF treatment. They are beginning again after unemployment, beginning again after recovery from addiction, uh, beginning again after returning back to the office, beginning again after speaking and feeling like a failure. I know someone that I know, she is beginning again after returning to medical practice. She had stopped being a physician, she hated it, and now she has re-entered the hospital setting. And what was interesting is that invisible beginning was not easy, not for any of us, because our invisible beginnings, they don't come with balloons or applause or parties or accolades or anything that symbolizes we are starting something new and something fresh. Oftentimes, invisible beginnings means just quietly showing up with nobody understanding the courage and the resilience and the power that it requires to do that. For example, when I went back to the gym, nobody knew that coming back to the gym was hard. Now, some people saw me crying after I realized I couldn't do what I used to do. But when I walked in, people didn't see the trepidation and the sadness and the doubt and the frustration that it took so I could encourage myself to begin again. And people don't see what might be required of you to begin again. They might not know what it cost you to begin again, to start trying to date after betrayal, to begin again, to be creative after someone stole your idea, begin again after maybe you were publicly scrutinized or embarrassed, to begin again after maybe you lost a race or a position publicly, to begin again after maybe a demotion. It takes power. It takes power. And so I just want to let you know that not only you are dealing with some invisible beginnings, there are many people in your life who are dealing with invisible beginnings. And I hope you celebrate the courage that you have, that you see in others who are beginning again. Reflection number 4. The reflection is that you don't have to choose between grief and gratitude. You don't have to choose between grief and gratitude. Because when I was going through my situation and I couldn't push those weights, the tears came because I was sad that I had lost so much strength and stamina. But even in those tears, there were gratitude that I was walking and I was driving and that I was getting stronger. And those two emotions can coexist. And so I want you to think about your own life. Because who told us that we had to choose one emotion? We don't. We can choose many different types of emotions. We can hold many different types of emotions simultaneously. And so who told you that you can only hold one emotion? Who told us that gratitude means that we cannot be sad? You can be sad and grateful at the same time. Who told you that faith means we cannot grieve? We can hold faith and hope and still grieve. Who said that we have to pick one or the other? I think what was really helpful to me after I kind of settled myself down is that I took some pride in being able to be emotionally honest. I didn't have to feel like I can be this or that. I gave myself permission to be this and that. And I feel like when we are emotionally honest about what we feel and why we feel, that's how we honor ourselves. That's how we honor our stories. That's how we build trust within ourselves. That's how we learn to empower ourselves. And what I learned is that when we stop arguing with reality of what we should feel, what we should do, that's when we create space for healing. When we stop trying to argue about what's appropriate to feel, that's when we have power. That's when we have energy. That's when we have the ability to see ourselves in all of the different dimensions and complexities that make us amazing human beings. So I want you to give yourself permission to hold 2 emotions, 3 emotions, 4 emotions, all at the same time. Because that's emotionally honest, that's spiritually mature, and I think if we don't deserve honesty with anybody else, we deserve it with ourselves. So reflection number 5. Courage is not the absence of emotion. Courage is not the absence of emotion to move forward. It's not. Many people, I feel like, are waiting to not be afraid. They are waiting to stop hurting. They are waiting to feel confident. They're waiting and waiting and waiting, not giving themselves credit that courage is in the trying. Courage is in the showing up. And so courage can be in applying new wisdom to an old situation. Courage can be trying to date again after betrayal. It takes courage to trust yourself again after you did not honor your intuition. And so I really think it's important for all of us to remember that courage is not the absence of emotion. Courage is a feeling, and courage is feeling what you feel and continuing anyway. So you can be sad and still move forward. You can be scared and still move forward. You can feel overwhelmed and still take a small step. Those things can exist together. And the sixth reflection that I hope speaks to you, and we touched on it a little bit already, is permission is powerful. Permission. We have to own and remember and to remind ourselves that we have permission to heal. We have permission to go slower. We have permission to be honest. We have permission to grieve. And we have permission to not be who we used to be. We have permission to accept our new reality. We have permission to sometimes reminisce about the memory of who we used to be. We have permission. Permission. And sometimes we spend so much energy trying to reclaim who we used to be, trying to reclaim our old profits, our old perspectives, our old people who are no longer in our lives, maybe our old productivity, our old profitability, our old status, our old title, our old image, that we forget that we can give ourselves permission to do a lot of things. And one of the most important things to do when you're recovering is give yourself permission to feel what you're feeling, to give yourself permission to reclaim compassion for yourself, and permission just to bring your whole self to a familiar experience, knowing that you may have physical, emotional, spiritual reactions, and all of that's okay. Yeah. So I want to leave you with this. I want to leave you with a question. And the question is, where in your life are you standing in a familiar place, but you're standing as a different person? Or where in your life are you existing in a familiar relationship, but as a new person? Where in your life are you feeling that you're in familiar surroundings, but you have a different spirit? And what could happen and what would happen if you stop judging, criticizing, trying to rationalize the version of yourself right now, and start listening to all of your emotions, experiences? Because maybe this season in your life is not asking you to be stronger. Maybe this season of being a new person in a familiar setting, maybe it's just asking you to be more honest with yourself. Maybe it's asking you to trust yourself. Maybe it's asking you to hold both grief and gratitude. Maybe it's asking you to understand that showing up is enough. Showing up is enough. Not forever, but for today. And sometimes today is all we need, as when we're going through recovery, whatever we are recovering from, whatever we are healing from, whatever we feel we need to do in our next stage, next season, next chapter of our life. Yeah? So if this episode really speaks to you, I ask you to share it with someone who may be navigating a transition. These are the people who will probably never tell you that they need a word of encouragement, but you know who they are. So if you can share it, please subscribe to the podcast if you want to be up to date on what I'm sharing. I will try to do more live or face to face on YouTube so we can kind of feel each other's not only emotions and words, but also each other's personality. I would love to connect with you. And so please subscribe and hit the notification button so that you know when I drop new episodes. And I will always invite you to join a newsletter. That's when I go into great depth about what I'm learning. I would love to share with you. I will leave a link down below. And if you are interested in having these conversations around reclamation and healing and recovery and reinvention, I want to let you know that you are welcome to join the Reclamation Circle. It's a group of purpose seekers who are committed to experiencing all of who they are, but also holding safe places for people to be all of who they are. So I want to make sure that you know that you're welcome to join. And if you're interested, there is a link below. So again, I am grateful that you are here. I want you to remember those 6 reflections. Remember, they're different types of beginners, and it's okay to be a different type of beginner. Just know that when you go to a familiar place as a new person, you might need to adjust, and people might need to adjust to you. I want you to honor the places where you are having invisible beginnings, because you might not get the support out of accolades or the applause because people don't know really what you're going through. I want you to give yourself permission to experience all of your emotions, because all of them are important and valid, and provide information to help you navigate this season and this journey. I want you to remember that courage shows up in a whole bunch of different ways. And courage allows you to show up however you need to show up, right? And it doesn't have to be this major display. It's whatever it takes you to get from point A and point B. And the 6 is to give yourself permission. Permission to be in the moment, to grow, permission to really immerse yourself in the experience. Because remember, recovery is not always about getting stronger. Sometimes recovery is just about being honest. Sometimes recovery is asking us to trust ourselves, to not judge ourselves, to honor ourselves, and to love ourselves. Yeah? And so I want to leave you with this blessing, like I always do. And I hope this blessing supports you as you are navigating this journey. And it reads as follows: May you honor what you lost. May you celebrate what is growing. May you trust yourself enough to tell yourself the truth. May you meet this new version of yourself with compassion and anticipation, and with joy and honor. And may you continue showing up for yourself during this season, this journey, with courage, grace, and hope, knowing that you can dare to soar higher, because the best, however the best shows up, is still yet to come. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I look forward to seeing you next week. Blessings.